The morning sun rose over New Seoul Colony like it had for the past 50 years. Han Minho stood on his office balcony, watching the farmers tend their crops in the valley below. The wheat fields stretched for miles, golden and ready for harvest. Children ran between the houses, laughing as they played. It was a good life. Han Minho had been the colony administrator for 10 years. His father had helped build this place, and his grandfather had been on the first ship that landed here. 3 generations of his family had called this planet home. The colony now had 50,000 people living in peace. Park Ji-won was already at work in the agricultural center. She checked the computer screens that showed crop growth across the entire colony. Everything looked perfect. The weather was good, the soil was rich, and the harvest would feed everyone through the winter. Her daughter Lee Sora helped her, learning how to manage the food systems. "Mom, look at this," Lee Sora said, pointing at a screen. "The corn in Sector 7 is growing faster than expected." Park Ji-won smiled. Her daughter was smart and worked hard. At 15, Lee Sora already understood the colony's farming systems better than most adults. "That's because of the new fertilizer Kim Tae-hyun developed," she explained. Kim Tae-hyun was the colony's chief engineer. He spent his days making sure all the machines worked properly, the water pumps, the power generators, the air recyclers, everything that kept the colony alive. He was proud of his work. The colony had never lost power, never run out of water, never had a major breakdown. The 3 leaders often met for coffee in the morning. Today was no different. They sat in Park Ji-won's office, discussing plans for the winter months. "The new houses in the North District are almost finished," Kim Tae-hyun reported. "We can move 200 more families there next month." "Good," Han Minho said. "More families means more children. More children means our future is secure." They had no idea that their future was about to end. The ships appeared in the sky without warning. They were huge, bigger than any building in the colony. Dark metal shapes that blocked out the sun. 20 of them, hanging in the air like storm clouds. People stopped what they were doing and looked up. Children pointed at the sky. Parents grabbed their hands and pulled them inside. Something was wrong. These ships looked dangerous. Han Minho ran to his office and turned on the colony's communication system. His voice echoed from speakers all over New Seoul. "Everyone stay calm. Unknown ships have arrived. Go to your homes and wait for instructions." The largest ship sent a message. The voice was cold and strange, speaking words that hurt to hear. "Human settlement of New Seoul Colony. You are in violation of Galactic Council Law 447. This territory belongs to the sacred Vorthak race. You will evacuate immediately." Han Minho stared at the communication screen. Sacred Vorthak race? Galactic Council? He had never heard of either. The colony had been here for 50 years. Earth had sent them here. This was their home. He activated the response channel. "This is Administrator Han Minho of New Seoul Colony. We are citizens of Earth. This planet was claimed by humanity 50 years ago. We have legal settlement rights." The alien voice laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Human law means nothing. Galactic Council law is supreme. You have 1 hour to begin evacuation." 1 hour? Han Minho felt panic rising in his chest. They had 50,000 people, families, children, elderly residents. Even if they wanted to leave, they only had a few small ships. It would take months to evacuate everyone. "We need more time," Han Minho replied. "We have many people, including children and sick residents. Give us 72 hours to organize a proper evacuation." The response came quickly. "Request denied. You have violated sacred territory. The penalty is immediate removal. Park." Ji-won and Kim Tae-hyun arrived at Han Minho's office. They had been listening to the communications. All 3 of them knew this was bad. "What do we do?" Park Ji-won asked. Her voice shook with fear. "We protect our people," Han Minho said. "He activated the colony's emergency system." Red lights flashed throughout New Seoul. The evacuation alarm began to sound. "All residents report to emergency stations immediately. This is not a drill. Prepare for emergency evacuation procedures." Kim Tae-hyun ran to his engineering station. If they were going to evacuate, they needed all systems working. He started the backup power generators and activated the emergency communication network. Park Ji-won went to find her daughter. Lee Sora was helping other families gather their belongings. "Sora, come with me now," her mother called. "But Mom, these people need help." "Now, Sora," the hour passed too quickly. Families gathered at the evacuation points, but there were not enough ships. The colony's transport vessels could only carry 5,000 people at most. What about the other 45,000? Han Minho sent another message to the alien ships. "We are preparing to evacuate, but we need more time. We don't have enough ships for everyone." The alien voice was different now, colder, more angry. "Time expired. Sacred law violated. Punishment begins." The first laser beam struck the colony's main power plant. The explosion lit up the sky. Kim Tae-hyun watched 50 years of his work disappear in flames. The backup generators kicked in, but they would not last long. "They're attacking!" someone screamed. More laser beams fell from the sky. They hit the water treatment center, the hospital, the school. Buildings exploded one after another. The aliens were not trying to force evacuation. They were trying to kill everyone. Han Minho grabbed the emergency radio. All stations, we are under attack. Get people to the underground shelters, immediately." But the underground shelters had been built for storms, not for alien weapons. The laser beams went right through the ground, turning rock and metal into melted slag. Park Ji-won and Lee Sora ran through the burning streets. Other families ran with them, carrying children and elderly relatives. Behind them, their homes burned. "Playus. Emergency pods!" Kim Tae-hyun shouted over the noise of explosions. He pointed toward the small launch facility at the edge of town. "If we can reach the emergency pods, some of us might escape." The emergency pods were small ships meant for true disasters. Each one could carry 10 people. There were only 20 pods total. 200 people might escape if they were lucky. Families ran toward the launch facility. Laser beams struck the ground around them. Some people fell and did not get up. Others kept running, carrying the wounded. Park Ji-won pushed Lee Sora into one of the emergency pods. "Get in, quickly! What about you, Mom? I'm coming. Help me get these other children inside." They loaded the pod with 10 people, Park Ji-won, Lee Sora, and 8 other children whose parents had been killed in the attack. Kim Tae-hyun sealed the pod from the outside. "Launch sequence initiated," the pod's computer announced. "Emergency departure in 30 seconds. Through the small window, Park Ji-won could see other pods launching. Some made it into space. Others were shot down by the alien ships before they could escape. Their pod lifted off just as another laser beam destroyed the launch facility. Kim Tae-hyun was still down there, making sure the pods could launch. Park Ji-won watched him disappear in the explosion. As their pod climbed toward space, Lee Sora looked back at New Seoul Colony. The entire settlement was burning. 50,000 people had lived there this morning. Now it was just fire and smoke. "Recording emergency message," the pod's computer said. "Please state the nature of the emergency." Park Ji-won looked at the small camera. Her face was dirty and tears ran down her cheeks. "This is Park Ji-won of New Seoul Colony. We were attacked without warning by ships claiming to represent a galactic council. They demanded we evacuate sacred Vorthak territory. When we requested time to evacuate civilians, they opened fire on our colony." She paused, trying to find the right words. "They killed everyone, 50,000 innocent people, men, women, children, elderly residents, all dead. They gave us no chance to surrender, no chance to negotiate. This was not war. This was murder." The pod's computer continued recording as Park Ji-won described the attack. The footage would take 6 months to reach Earth. But when it arrived, everything would change. Lee Sora held her mother's hand as their small pod drifted toward home. Behind them, New Seoul Colony burned until there was nothing left but ash and ruins. The Galactic Council had made their first mistake. They had left witnesses alive. 6 months later, the emergency pod carrying Park Ji-won and Lee Sora reached Earth's outer detection grid. The automated systems immediately recognized the pod's emergency beacon and guided it to Luna Station, Earth's primary spaceport. Park Ji-won and the 8 surviving children were taken to medical facilities. They were weak and sick from the long journey, but alive. More importantly, they carried the recorded evidence of what happened at New Seoul Colony. Within hours, the footage was being broadcast across every screen on Earth. People watched in Horror as laser beams destroyed homes, schools, and hospitals. They saw children running through burning streets. They saw 50,000 innocent people murdered for no reason, except that aliens claimed the land was sacred. Earth had been at peace for over a century. The different nations still existed, but they rarely fought anymore. War seemed like something from the old history books. But watching the destruction of New Sol Colony changed everything. President Choi Dae-ho of the United Earth Assembly called an emergency session. Representatives from every nation gathered in Geneva. For the first time in decades, they all agreed on something. The aliens had committed a crime that could not be forgiven. "Fellow humans," President Choi said, his voice broadcast to every person on Earth and every human colony, "we have seen evil beyond imagination. 50,000 of our people were murdered simply for existing in the wrong place. The aliens who did this think we are weak. They think we will accept this crime and do nothing." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "They are wrong." Defense Minister Yoon Ha-jin stood up in the assembly hall. She was an older woman, gray-haired and serious. Most people thought she managed Earth's small defense fleet, a few hundred ships that patrolled near Earth and protected the colonies. "My fellow humans," Yoon Ha-jin said, "the time has come to reveal Earth's greatest secret. For 200 years, we have been preparing for this day." The assembly hall fell silent. On screens around the world, people stopped what they were doing to listen. During our early expansion into space, Earth's leaders made a decision. We would never again be helpless against a stronger enemy. So we built something in secret. Deep in the Oort cloud, far from Earth where no one would look, we constructed automated shipyards. Yoon Ha-jin activated a holographic display. It showed the edge of the solar system where comets came from. Hidden among the ice and rock were massive structures. These shipyards have been building warships for 200 years. They use self-replicating technology. Each shipyard builds ships and also builds more shipyards. The process has never stopped. The hologram showed thousands of ships floating in the dark space beyond Pluto. They were sleek and deadly looking, unlike anything anyone had ever seen. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present Earth's forgotten Armada. 10,000 warships, each one more advanced than anything currently known to exist. They have been waiting for the day when humanity would need them." The assembly hall erupted in surprised voices. Around the world, people stared at their screens in amazement. Earth had a secret fleet? For 200 years, Admiral Shin Woo-jin was pulled from retirement that same day. He was 70 years old, but still sharp and strong. In his younger days, he had commanded Earth's regular defense fleet. Now he was being asked to command something much larger. "Admiral," President Choi said, "we need someone who understands both military strategy and human nature. The Forgotten Armada has been run by artificial intelligence for 2 centuries. The ships are smart, but they need human leadership. Admiral." Shin looked at the holographic displays showing the hidden fleet. Each ship was beautiful in its own way, designed by machines that had spent decades perfecting every detail. "What are our orders, Mr. President?" "Bring our people home. Make sure this never happens again." Chief Science Officer Nam Yoon-ji was brought in to help coordinate with the ship AIs. She was a specialist in human-computer interaction, one of the few people who understood how to communicate with truly advanced artificial intelligence. When she first connected to the Forgotten Armada's network, she was amazed. The ship AIs had not been idle for 200 years. They had been learning, improving, evolving. The weapons systems were far beyond anything Earth's public scientists had imagined. "Admiral," Nam Yoon-ji reported, "these ships are not just advanced. They're revolutionary. The AIs have been developing new technologies based on theoretical physics models. Some of these weapons could destroy entire planets." "Good," Admiral Shin replied. "Our enemies have shown us what they think of human life. We will show them what we think of their crime." Meanwhile, at a military academy on Mars, Lee Sora was recovering from her ordeal. The doctors said she was physically healthy, but everyone could see the anger in her eyes. She had watched her world burn. She had seen her friends and neighbors murdered. When military recruiters visited the medical facility, Lee Sora was the first to volunteer. "I want to join the fleet," she told them. "I want to make the aliens pay for what they did." The recruiters looked at her file. She was only 16, technically too young for military service, but she was also one of the few witnesses to the New Sol massacre. Her testimony had helped Earth understand exactly what they were dealing with. "There's an accelerated program for exceptional circumstances," one recruiter explained. "You would train directly on the ships, learning from the AIs themselves. It's dangerous and difficult." "I don't care about dangerous," Lee Sora said. "I care about justice." Park Ji-won watched her daughter make this decision. She wanted to object to keep her child safe. But she also understood. The aliens had taken everything from them. Their home, their friends, their peaceful life. Someone had to make sure it never happened again. "If this is what you want," Park Ji-won told her daughter, "then I support you. But promise me you'll be careful." "I promise, Mom, and I promise that New Sol will be avenged." Admiral Shin began the process of activating the Forgotten Armada. It was not simple. The ships had been in deep hibernation mode, their systems running at minimum power. Waking them up would take weeks. Nam Yunji worked with her team to establish communication with each ship's AI. The artificial intelligences were eager to finally fulfill their purpose. They had been built to protect humanity, and now humanity needed protection. "Admiral," one ship AI reported, "we have been monitoring galactic communications for the past century. We know about the Galactic Council. We know about their military capabilities. We are ready to engage." The ship's name was Sol's Vengeance, and Admiral Shin decided it would be Lee Sora's training vessel when she was ready. As news of the Forgotten Armada spread, something changed in humanity. For the first time in over a century, every human settlement in the galaxy felt connected to Earth. They were not just isolated colonies anymore. They were part of something larger, something powerful. The aliens had attacked New Sol thinking humans were weak and helpless. They thought Earth would protest, but do nothing. They had made a terrible mistake. Deep in the Oort cloud, 10,000 warships began to wake up. Their weapons systems came online. Their engines started warming up. Their AIs began planning the war that was coming. The Galactic Council had declared that human life was worthless. Soon, they would learn what humans thought about that declaration. President Choi's final message to the galaxy was broadcast on all frequencies. "To the Galactic Council and all alien species, you have committed murder against innocent humans. You believe we are weak because we live in peace. You will learn that humans can choose to be peaceful. We can also choose war. We choose war." Around Earth and in the outer solar system, the Forgotten Armada prepared for humanity's first interstellar conflict. It would not be the last. On the planet Nexus Prime, capital of the Galactic Council, the ruling chamber buzzed with the usual business of governing a galaxy. Representatives from 12 different alien species sat in floating pods arranged around a massive central sphere. They discussed trade routes, territorial disputes, and resource allocation. Council Speaker Veltar presided over the session from his elevated platform. He was a hegemony, one of the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. His kind had been traveling between stars when most other species were still learning to make fire. "Next item," Veltar announced in his deep, resonant voice. "Report on the human pest removal operation." Military Commander Thexnor rose from his pod. He was a different species, shorter and stockier than Veltar, with thick armored skin and small, cold eyes. "The operation was successful, Speaker. The illegal human settlement on Vorthak's sacred world has been eliminated." "Casualties?" "Total elimination of the human presence. Approximately 50,000 specimens removed." Several council members nodded in approval. The elimination of unauthorized settlements was routine business. Species were always trying to expand into territory that belonged to others. The council existed to maintain order. "Any complications?" Veltar asked. A few escape pods reached space before elimination was complete. Standard procedure is to ignore such minor details. The primitives occasionally run back to their homeworld with stories, but it rarely leads to meaningful action. Veltar was about to move on to the next agenda item when his communication aide approached with an urgent message. The aide was nervous, which was unusual. "Speaker, we are receiving transmissions from the human home world. They appear to be making demands." "Demands?" Veltar found this amusing. "What could such a primitive species possibly demand from us?" The aide activated the main display screen. President Choi's image appeared, speaking with what appeared to be anger and determination. The translation systems converted his words into the standard galactic language. Crime that cannot be forgiven. We demand the immediate surrender of all military personnel involved in the New Soul massacre. We demand reparations for the 50,000 innocent lives taken. We demand recognition of human territorial rights throughout the galaxy. The council chamber fell silent for a moment, then erupted in laughter. The sound echoed off the crystalline walls like breaking glass. Demands! Military Commander Thexnor laughed so hard, his armored skin changed color. The pets are making demands! Veltar held up one clawed hand for silence. This is actually quite amusing. How long has it been since a primitive species has been so boldly ignorant of their place in galactic society? At least 300 cycles, Speaker, his aide replied. Fascinating. What do our intelligence reports say about human military capabilities? Science advisor Quintel consulted her datapad. She was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. Standard primitive level technology, Speaker. Projectile weapons, chemical explosives, nuclear devices. Their space vessels are adequate for local transport but pose no threat to Council military assets. Fleet composition? Approximately 400 small vessels, suitable for patrol duties and colony supply missions. No capital ships, no advanced weapon systems, no faster-than-light combat capability? Veltar nodded thoughtfully. And our current military strength? Military Commander Thexnor stood proudly. 50,000 vessels across all fleets, Speaker. Representatives from all 12 Council species, equipped with plasma weapons, shield generators, and quantum engines. The humans have approximately one ship for every 125 of ours. Excellent. This provides us with an opportunity. An opportunity, Speaker? Veltar's eyes gleamed with something that might have been greed. The human population has grown significantly over the past century. Current estimates suggest approximately 10 billion specimens across 37 worlds. They have been allowed to expand specifically for this purpose. The council chamber grew quiet as members realized what their speaker was suggesting. The Great Harvest, whispered Economic Coordinator Trundok. Indeed, the humans have reached optimal population levels for large-scale labor extraction. Their angry demands provide us with perfect justification for total subjugation. The Great Harvest was a process the Galactic Council had used several times throughout history. When a primitive species became numerous enough to be useful, the Council would provoke them into a war they could not win. After their inevitable defeat, the survivors would be distributed among Council species as a slave workforce. Military Commander Thexnor was already making plans. We could divide the human territories among the 12 Council species. Each species would receive approximately 3 worlds and 800 million specimens. My people have been requesting additional labor for our mining operations, said Industrial Representative Korth Ani. His species was known for heavy construction work and needed strong workers for dangerous projects. The humans would be perfect. For agricultural work in our outer colonies, added Agricultural Coordinator Dranseth. Veltar listened to the eager discussions with satisfaction. The Council had been planning this for decades. They had allowed humans to spread throughout the galaxy, knowing that eventually the species would become numerous enough to be worth harvesting. Very well, Veltar announced. Military Commander Thexnor, you will prepare the full Council fleet for human subjugation operations. Make it clear to all species commanders that this is not a war of elimination. We want the maximum number of survivors for labor allocation. Understood, Speaker. Should we respond to their demands? Oh, yes. Send them a message explaining their new status. Let them know that their expansion period is over, and their service period is beginning. Some species accept their fate peacefully once they understand the situation. What none of the Council members knew was that their session was being monitored. Hidden in the gallery above the chamber, wearing technology that made him nearly invisible to their sensors, sat a human. Kang Jiho had escaped Earth 25 years ago as a young man seeking adventure. He had learned to live among alien traders, disguising his appearance and learning their languages. Most aliens had never seen humans before, so it was easy to pass himself off as a member of an obscure species from the Outer Rim. Over the years, he had worked his way into the Galactic Information Network. He learned about Council politics, their history, their methods. He had been gathering intelligence for years, planning to return to Earth eventually with valuable information about the galaxy humanity was expanding into. Now he listened in horror as the Council planned his species' enslavement. This was not a response to human aggression. This was a trap that had been in place for decades. Kang Jiho activated his hidden recording equipment and began documenting everything he heard. The Council's plans, their fleet strength, their assumptions about human capabilities. All of it needed to reach Earth as quickly as possible. The humans will likely concentrate their primitive fleet near their home world, Military Commander Thexnor was saying. Standard procedure is to destroy their military capabilities in a single engagement, then proceed with planetary occupation. How long until the fleet is ready? Veltar asked. 6 standard months, Speaker. We want to ensure maximum participation from all Council species. This will be a historic victory. 6 months. Kang Jiho realized that would barely give him time to reach Earth before the Council fleet arrived. He would have to leave immediately and push his ship to its maximum speed. One more item to consider, Science Advisor Quintel said. The humans have been broadcasting information about their forgotten armada. Our analysis suggests this is propaganda designed to discourage us. No primitive species could hide significant military assets for extended periods. Agreed, Veltar said dismissively. Even if they had hidden ships, they would still be using primitive technology. Quantity cannot overcome quality when the technological gap is so vast. The Council session continued for another hour, but Kang Jiho had heard enough. The aliens were planning genocide disguised as conquest. They saw humans as animals to be captured and used, not as intelligent beings with rights. As the session ended and the Council members departed, Kang Jiho slipped away through maintenance corridors. His small ship was hidden in a cargo bay near the edge of the spaceport. If he left now and flew without stopping, he could reach Earth in 4 months. That would give humanity 2 months to prepare for what was coming. As his ship lifted off from Nexus Prime, Kang Jiho began composing his message to Earth. The Galactic Council thought they were hunting helpless prey. They had no idea that humanity had been preparing for this war for 200 years. The hunters were about to become the hunted. Admiral Shin Woo-jin stood on the bridge of the flagship Incheon's Fury, watching through the view screen as his fleet prepared for humanity's first interstellar war. Around him in the vast darkness of the Oort cloud, 10,000 warships hung. In perfect formation, each ship was a masterpiece of engineering. The artificial intelligences had spent 2 centuries perfecting their designs. They were long and sleek, built for speed and stealth. Their hull material absorbed sensor waves instead of reflecting them. Their weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Fleet status report, Admiral Shin requested. Chief Science Officer Nam Eunji consulted her displays. All 10,000 vessels report ready for combat operations, Admiral. Weapons systems at full power, engines warmed up, AI cores operating at maximum efficiency. Any word from our intelligence asset? Kang Jiho's ship is still 2 weeks out from Earth, but his preliminary reports have been very helpful. The Galactic Council fleet consists of 50,000 ships, but they use outdated technology. Plasma weapons, energy shields, quantum engines, all of it at least 50 years behind what our AIs have developed. Admiral Shin nodded grimly. Numbers versus technology. It won't be the first time humanity has faced those odds. On one of the nearby ships, the Soul's Vengeance, Lee Sora was completing her accelerated training program. At 17, she was the youngest officer in the fleet, but her scores were among the highest. The ship's AI had taken a special interest in training her. Officer Lee, the AI's voice came through the bridge speakers. Please review the tactical scenario on screen 3. Lee Sora studied the holographic display. It showed a typical Galactic Council battle formation, ships arranged in neat lines, firing plasma weapons at long range. They fight like it's a formal duel, she observed. Very predictable patterns. Correct. Council species view warfare as a ritualized activity with established rules. They do not expect opponents to use unconventional tactics. What about our tactics? The AI paused for a moment, processing. Human warfare has always been characterized by adaptation and innovation. We will not fight according to their rules. Lee Sora smiled coldly. She thought about New Soul Colony, about her friends, who had died screaming as alien weapons burned their homes. Good. They showed my people no mercy. They deserve none in return. Meanwhile, Captain Bae Hyunwoo was conducting final weapons tests aboard his vessel, the Busan Lightning. His ship specialized in kinetic bombardment systems, weapons that accelerated, solid projectiles to incredible speeds. Firing solution calculated, his AI reported. Target, asteroid designation Alpha 77. Fire when ready. The ship's main gun discharged with barely a whisper. A tungsten rod, no bigger than a pencil, shot out at 90% of light speed. When it struck the asteroid 3 seconds later, the entire rock simply vanished in a flash of energy. Impressive, Captain Bae said. What would that do to an enemy ship? Complete molecular disintegration of target vessel and anything within a 5-kilometer radius, the AI replied matter-of-factly. Captain Bae whistled softly. The aliens had no idea what was coming for them. Engineer Oh Sunmi was coordinating. What the fleet called Ghost Protocol, the ability for human ships to become completely invisible to enemy sensors. It was a new technology that the AIs had developed, based on principles of quantum mechanics that most species hadn't discovered yet. All ships report Ghost Protocol ready, she announced from her position aboard the Daegu Shadow. We can maintain full stealth for up to 6 hours of combat operations. Excellent, Admiral Shin replied over the fleet communication network. The Galactic Council expects a conventional battle. They will not expect enemies who can appear and disappear at will. The fleet's target was Proxima Station, a Galactic Council military outpost located halfway between Earth and the Council's main territories. According to Kang Jiho's intelligence, the station was defended by approximately 500 ships and served as a forward operating base for Council military activities. It's time to announce humanity's presence in galactic affairs, Admiral Shin told his fleet commanders. Remember, we are not just fighting for revenge. We are fighting to ensure that no alien species ever again thinks they can murder humans without consequence. The fleet began moving toward their target. Human ships could travel faster than anything the Council possessed, using engines that manipulated space-time itself instead of relying on conventional propulsion. The journey to Proxima Station would take only 3 days. As they traveled, Sora studied the intelligence reports about their enemies. The Galactic Council was made up of 12 different alien species, each with their own military traditions and fighting styles. Most had been spacefaring for thousands of years. They think experience makes them superior, she told the Soul's Vengeance AI. But experience can also make you predictable. An astute observation, Officer Lee. The Council species have been fighting the same way for centuries. They do not adapt quickly to new tactics. Sora thought about her mother, Park Ji-won, who was now working with Earth's government to coordinate support for the fleet. Her mother had wanted her to stay on Earth, to stay safe. But safety was an illusion as long as the aliens thought they could attack humans without facing consequences. When the fleet reached Proxima Station, they found exactly what Kang Jiho had described. A large military facility surrounded by defensive ships arranged in traditional formation. Energy shields protected the station, and plasma weapon platforms covered all approaches. Admiral Shin activated fleet communications. All ships, implement Ghost Protocol. Prepare for combat. One by one, the human ships vanished from all sensor readings. To the aliens at Proxima Station, the attacking fleet simply disappeared. Council Commander Vexathar was in charge of the station's defenses. He was a veteran officer who had fought in dozens of battles over his long career. When his sensors detected the approaching human fleet, he had been amused rather than concerned. Primitive vessels approaching from bearing 77 Mark IV, his sensor operator reported. Approximately 10,000 contacts, but the readings are inconsistent. Inconsistent how? They keep disappearing from our sensors, Commander. One moment they're there, the next moment they're gone. Commander Vexthar was puzzled. No species in the galaxy had stealth technology that advanced. Sensor malfunction. Run full diagnostics. Diagnostics complete, Commander. All systems functioning, normally. Then where are the human ships? The answer came in the form of tungsten rods moving at near light speed. The Soul's Vengeance, invisible to enemy sensors, had positioned itself directly above the station. Sora targeted the main shield generator. Firing, she announced. The shield generator exploded in a ball of superheated plasma. Suddenly, Proxima Station was defenseless. All around the station, human ships decloaked long enough to fire, then vanished again. Kinetic weapons, energy beams, and quantum torpedoes struck the alien fleet with devastating precision. Council ships that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were torn apart in seconds. "What's happening?" Commander Vexthar shouted as explosions rocked his command center. "Where are they shooting from?" His ships fired wildly in all directions, trying to hit enemies they couldn't see. Their plasma weapons heated empty space while human ships moved among them like ghosts, striking without warning. Captain Bei Hyun-woo brought the Busan Lightning in close to the station's main docking bay. "Target the command center," he ordered. His AI. The kinetic weapon fired once. The entire command section of Proxima Station simply ceased to exist. Engineer Oh Sun-mi coordinated the final phase of the attack. Human ships surrounded the surviving alien vessels, decloaking simultaneously. To reveal the full extent of the fleet, "Attention Galactic Council forces," Admiral Shin broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Admiral Shin Woo-jin of the Earth Defense Fleet. You have committed crimes against humanity. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." The remaining alien ships tried to run. They discovered that human vessels were faster than anything they possessed. One by one, the Council ships were hunted down and destroyed. The entire battle lasted less than 20 minutes. 500 alien ships had been reduced to debris. Not a single human vessel had been damaged. "Mission accomplished," Admiral Shin announced to his fleet. "Proxima Station has been eliminated. All Council forces in this sector have been destroyed." Lee Sora looked at the wreckage floating outside her view screen. This was humanity's first victory, but it was only the beginning. The Galactic Council had 50,000 ships. Earth had 10,000. The real war was still to come. "Set course for Earth," Admiral Shin ordered. "It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity." The forgotten Armada had awakened, and the aliens would learn to fear the species they had considered harmless prey. The news of Proxima Station's destruction reached Nexus Prime 3 days later. Council Speaker Veltar stood in his private chambers, staring at the battle recordings that had been transmitted by the few escape pods that survived the attack. "This is impossible," he muttered, watching human ships appear and disappear like phantoms. "No primitive species possesses such technology." Military Commander Thexnor stood nearby, his armored skin pale with shock. "The entire garrison was destroyed, Speaker. 500 ships reduced to debris in 20 minutes. Our weapons couldn't even target their vessels." "How many human ships were destroyed?" "None, Speaker." Veltar felt something he had not experienced in centuries: fear. The Galactic Council had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years because no single species could match their combined military might. Now, a supposedly primitive race had demonstrated technology that made Council ships look like toys. "Mobilize everything," Veltar ordered. "Every ship, every species, every weapon in our arsenal. The humans must be crushed before they can develop their forces further." "Speaker, that will leave our core territories undefended. If we do not stop the humans now, we will have no territories to defend." Across the galaxy, the call went out. 50,000 ships began converging on the Centauri Junction, a strategic point where multiple hyperspace routes intersected. It was the largest military fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Military Commander Thexnor commanded the operation from his flagship, a massive vessel called the Council's Wrath. Around him floated ships from all 12 Council species: the armored battlecruisers of the Hegemony, the swift raiders of the Vorthak, the heavy bombardment ships of the Krellian Empire. "All fleet commanders report ready, Commander," his aide announced. "Excellent. The humans think they can defeat us with tricks and stealth. They will learn that raw power overcomes all deception." The Council fleet was indeed impressive. 50,000 ships arranged in perfect formation, their combined firepower capable of reducing planets to ash. Each ship was equipped with plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and energy shields that had protected Council forces for millennia. What they didn't know was that they were flying into a trap. Admiral Shin Woo-jin stood on the bridge of the Inchons, fury, watching long-range sensors track the approaching Council fleet. Around him, the 10,000 ships of the Forgotten Armada waited in complete silence, hidden among the asteroids and cosmic debris of the Centauri Junction. "Enemy fleet approaching, Admiral," Chief Science Officer Nam Unji reported. "They're using Standard Formation 7 Alpha. All ships bunched together for maximum defensive coverage." Perfect, Admiral Shin replied. They're fighting the last war instead of this one. Captain Park Jin-woo commanded the flanking force aboard his ship, the Gwangju Thunder. His orders were to cut off the Council fleet's retreat route once the battle began. 2,000 ships followed his lead, positioned behind the enemy formation. Engineer Oh Sun-mi coordinated the quantum communication network that allowed instant coordination across the entire human fleet. Unlike the Council forces, which relied on slower communication methods, human ships could respond to changing tactics in real time. All ships report ready, Admiral, Oh Sun-mi announced from her position aboard the Daegu Shadow. Kang Ji-ho, are you receiving our transmissions? Loud and clear, Admiral, came the response from deep within the Council fleet. Kang Ji-ho had managed to infiltrate the enemy formation using a captured Council vessel. He would provide real-time intelligence about their movements and weak points. Council command ship is the large vessel in the center formation, Kang Ji-ho reported. Heavy armor, but the shield generators are exposed on the dorsal surface. Lee Sora gripped her command chair aboard the Soul's Vengeance. At 18, she was now a full commander, one of the youngest in human history. The crew around her were all volunteers, people who had lost family and friends to alien attacks on various colonies. Commander Lee, her ship's AI said quietly, I am detecting elevated stress levels in your biosignature. I'm fine, Lee Sora replied, just thinking about New Seoul, the colony where you were born. The colony where 50,000 people died because aliens decided human life was worthless. Understood, Commander. We will make them regret that decision. The Council fleet came to a stop at the center of the junction, expecting the humans to approach from the direction of Earth. Instead, Admiral Shin activated the trap he had been preparing for months. All ships, execute Order Omega, he broadcast on the command frequency. The Centauri junction erupted in light as 10,000 human ships decloaked simultaneously. They were everywhere, above the Council fleet, below it, to both sides, and directly ahead. The aliens found themselves surrounded by enemies they couldn't see coming. Impossible! Military Commander Thexnor shouted as his tactical displays lit up with target warnings. Where did they all come from? Unknown contacts decloaking throughout the formation, his sensor operator reported. Estimated enemy strength. Wait. This can't be right. What? Sensor readings indicate approximately 10,000 enemy vessels, Commander. Thexnor felt his world collapse around him. The intelligence reports had said the humans possessed only a few hundred ships. 10,000 vessels meant they had been completely wrong about human capabilities. All ships, open fire, he ordered. Destroy everything that isn't flying a Council banner. The battle that followed would be remembered as the largest space combat in galactic history. 50,000 Council ships faced 10,000 human vessels in a fight that lit up the entire star system. But it was not the even fight the numbers suggested. Human weapons were simply superior. Kinetic bombardment systems tore through alien armor like paper. Energy weapons that manipulated matter at the quantum level turned enemy ships into clouds of atoms. Quantum torpedoes that could track targets through hyperspace made it impossible for Council ships to escape. Lee Sora led her squadron in an attack on the Council's heavy cruisers. Target their weapon systems first, she ordered. I want them helpless before we destroy them. The Soul's Vengeance danced between enemy plasma bolts, too fast and agile for the alien gunners to track. Her ship's weapons fired with surgical precision, disabling enemy vessels without destroying them immediately. Please surrender, she broadcast to the damaged Council ships. We do not wish to commit unnecessary slaughter. The response was more plasma fire. The aliens would rather die than surrender to a species they considered inferior. Their choice, Lee Sora said coldly, and ordered the killing shots. Captain Park Jin-woo's flanking force prevented any Council ships from escaping the battle. Every time a group of alien vessels tried to retreat, they found human ships waiting for them. The faster human engines made it impossible for the enemy to outrun their attackers. Council flagship is attempting to retreat, Kang Ji-ho reported from his position inside the enemy fleet. They're abandoning their own forces. Not acceptable, Admiral Shin replied. Captain Park, intercept the flagship. Do not let their command structure escape. The chase lasted only minutes. The Council's Wrath was a powerful ship, but it was slow compared to human vessels. The Gwangju Thunder caught up easily, matching the flagship's course and speed. Council vessel, this is Captain Park Jinwoo of the Earth Defense Fleet. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Military Commander Thexnor looked around his damaged bridge. Half his crew was dead, his weapons were offline, and his engines were failing. Around him, the once mighty Council fleet was being systematically annihilated by an enemy they had underestimated. "We surrender," he broadcast, the words bitter in his mouth. The Battle of Centauri Junction was over. Of the 50,000 ships that had arrived to crush humanity, less than 5,000 survived. The rest were debris floating in space, monuments to alien arrogance. Admiral Shin surveyed the wreckage from his command bridge. The Galactic Council's military power was broken. Their fleets were destroyed, their commanders were dead or captured, and their member species were beginning to surrender individually. "Admiral," Nam Yunji reported, "we're receiving surrender transmissions from 7 different Council species. They're abandoning the Alliance and requesting mercy." "Any word from the Council leadership?" "Speaker Veltar is requesting negotiations." Admiral Shin smiled grimly. "Tell him we'll discuss terms after we visit Nexus Prime. It's time the Council leadership learned what happens when you commit crimes against humanity." Lee Sora looked out at the battlefield where her people had achieved total victory. New Sol Colony had been avenged, but the war was not over. The aliens who had ordered the massacre were still alive, still in power. Set course for Nexus Prime. Admiral Shin ordered his fleet. "We have a council to dissolve." The forgotten Armada began moving toward the galactic capital, leaving behind the wreckage of the largest fleet ever assembled. The age of Galactic Council dominance was ending, and the age of human supremacy was about to begin. Nexus Prime had never seen warships in its skies. For thousands of years, the galactic capital had been protected by treaties, diplomacy, and the overwhelming military might of the Galactic Council. Now, 10,000 human vessels hung in orbit. Like dark storm clouds, their weapons trained on the planet below. Admiral Shin Woo-jin stood in the teleportation chamber of his flagship, preparing to beam down to the planet's surface. Behind him stood an honor guard of Marines, including Commander Lee Sora. They wore black uniforms with no insignia except the blue and white flag of Earth. "Are you ready for this?" Admiral Shin asked Lee Sora. She nodded, her face calm but her eyes burning with remembered pain. "I've been ready since the day they destroyed my home." The teleportation beam deposited them in the main plaza of Nexus Prime's capital city. Alien civilians scattered in panic, their many different species, united in fear of the humans who had appeared among them. Some tried to hide, others simply stared in shock. Council Speaker Veltar waited for them at the entrance to the ruling chamber, surrounded by what remained of his government. The proud alien leader who had ordered humanity's enslavement now looked old and defeated. "Admiral," Veltar said, his voice much smaller than it had been during the council sessions, "I request that we discuss terms for—" "There will be no discussion," Admiral Shin interrupted. "You will listen to the terms of your surrender." President Choi Daeho materialized next to the Admiral as his own teleportation completed. He had come personally to deliver humanity's judgment on the Galactic Council. "Speaker Veltar," President Choi said formally, "you stand accused of ordering the genocide of 50,000 innocent humans. You stand accused of planning the enslavement of 10 billion more. How do you plead?" Veltar looked around desperately, but there was no escape. His fleets were destroyed, his allies had abandoned him, and human ships controlled every approach to the planet. "The humans were in violation of sacred territory," he said weakly. "Council law clearly states, Council law no longer exists," President Choi replied. "The Galactic Council is hereby dissolved. Its member species will answer to human authority for their crimes." Chief Science Officer Nam Yunji and her teams were already at work throughout the city, taking control of the Council's vast computer networks. Centuries of galactic history, technological databases, and administrative records were being copied and analyzed. "Mr. President," Nam Yunji reported through her communicator, "we've accessed their central databases. The intelligence is extensive." "What did you find?" "Evidence of 17 previous species that were subjected to what they called great harvests." The Council has been doing this for thousands of years. They allow species to expand, then enslave them when they become numerous, enough to be useful. President Choi felt cold anger settle in his chest. Humanity had not been the first victim. The aliens had perfected this process over millennia, turning entire civilizations into slave labor. Any survivors from the previous harvests? 3 species still exist in slavery. The Council has been using them for dangerous mining operations and toxic waste cleanup. Mark their locations. We'll liberate them after we finish here. Meanwhile, Lee Sora led a team to the archives where records of the New Soul attack were stored. She wanted to see the official Council version of what had happened to her home. The files made her sick. The attack was listed as a routine pest control operation. The 50,000 murdered colonists were described as specimens removed from sacred territory. There was no mention of the evacuation request. No record of Han Minho's attempt to negotiate. "They didn't even consider us people," she said to her Marines. "We were just animals to be exterminated." Her team found more disturbing records. Plans for human breeding programs, discussions about which human populations would be best suited for different types of slave labor, detailed studies of human psychology designed to break resistance and ensure compliance. "Commander," one of her Marines, said, "You need to see this." The file he showed her contained photographs and biological data from the New Soul massacre. The Council had studied the human bodies, analyzing their physiology for weaknesses. They had been planning to improve their extermination methods for future operations. Lee Sora transmitted the files back to the fleet, then continued her search. In a secure section of the archives, she found something that made her hands shake with rage. Video recordings of the attack on New Soul, taken from the Council ships. She watched alien officers laughing as they fired on fleeing civilians. She saw her neighbors and friends burning while their killers treated it as entertainment. One recording showed a Council officer making jokes about human children running from their burning school. Another showed aliens placing bets on how long the colony's defenders would last before being overwhelmed. "Monsters," Lee Sora whispered. "They're not soldiers or warriors. They're monsters who enjoy killing." She transmitted everything to Admiral Shin and President Choi. The evidence would ensure that every species in the galaxy understood exactly what the Galactic Council had been doing. Back in the main plaza, President Choi was announcing humanity's judgment to the assembled alien leadership. "The species directly responsible for the New Soul massacre will face the same fate they imposed on innocent humans: complete destruction of their military capabilities and forced relocation under human supervision. You cannot..." One alien. Representatives started to protest. "We can and we will," President Choi cut him off. "You showed our people no mercy. You will receive exactly the same mercy in return." Admiral Shin stepped forward. "Military Commander Thexnor, step forward." The alien officer who had personally ordered the attack on New Soul was brought forward in restraints. His armored skin was pale, and he could barely stand. "You are charged with 50,000 counts of murder," Admiral Shin announced. "The penalty is death." Lee Sora drew her sidearm and aimed it at Thexnor's head. "This is for my friends who died screaming while..." "You laughed. The execution was swift and final." Around the plaza, other Council officials fell to their knees in terror. "The Galactic Council is dissolved," President Choi announced to the watching crowds. "Human Colonial Command will administer galactic affairs from this point forward. Species that cooperate will be treated fairly. Species that resist will be eliminated." Kang Jiho stepped forward to serve as humanity's first ambassador to the surviving alien species. His years of living among them had taught him their languages and customs. "The age of Council dominance is over," he told the assembled aliens. "The age of human leadership has begun. We offer you a choice: work with us as equals, or face the consequences of continued resistance." Some species chose cooperation immediately. Others tried to negotiate. A few attempted to flee or organize resistance. Admiral Shin dealt with the resistors quickly and efficiently, using his fleet to destroy their military assets and occupy their home worlds. Within 6 months, human authority extended across the entire galaxy. The surviving alien species learned that cooperation brought prosperity, while opposition brought destruction. Lee Sora, now promoted to Admiral Lee, established the first human colonial command post in the former council chambers. Her first official act was to authorize the liberation of the enslaved species that the council had harvested over the centuries. Park Ji-won arrived on Nexus Prime to witness the completion of her daughter's transformation from refugee to galactic administrator. She found Lee Sora in the memorial garden that had been built where the council's ruling chamber once stood. "It's finished, Mom," Lee Sora said, looking at the memorial plaque. "New Soul has been avenged." Park Ji-won read the inscription. "In memory of New Soul Colony, 50,000 innocent lives. Their deaths awakened humanity's true nature. Never again will we be prey." "What happens now?" Park Ji-won asked. Lee Sora looked up at the human ships patrolling overhead. "Now we make sure this never happens again to anyone, human or alien." The memorial garden was quiet except for the sound of water flowing in the fountains. Around the galaxy, human ships ensured that the trade routes were safe, that weaker species were protected, and that the strong could never again prey on the weak. The Galactic Council had made a fatal mistake when they attacked New Soul Colony. They had thought humans were helpless prey. Instead, they had awakened the galaxy's new apex predators. President Choi's final address to the galaxy was broadcast from the steps of the memorial. To all species throughout the galaxy, humanity did not seek this war. We wanted only to live in peace among the stars. But when peaceful humans were murdered for no crime except existing, we discovered what we truly are. We are not prey. We are not victims. We are the species that responds to genocide with overwhelming force. The galaxy is under human protection. Now, those who live in peace will prosper. Those who prey on the innocent will face the same fate as the Galactic Council. This is humanity's promise to the galaxy. Never again will the strong be allowed to slaughter the weak without consequence. We have seen what happens when evil goes unchallenged. We will not allow it to happen again. As the camera pulled back, the massive human fleet could be seen spreading out across the galaxy, carrying that promise to every star system and every world. The age of human supremacy had begun, built on the ashes of those who had thought murder.